All right. Before we get started here, I know a lot of people already read the title and they're saying, "What the fuck is Pete talking about? Here he goes again with his bullshit, blah, 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 blah." And we all know who the usual suspects are who are probably going to say that. But hear me out here first and just let me bring up a few points here. And I think these points are valid. And at least, give me the benefit of the doubt here and at least consider and acknowledge that I am going to make some valid points. So, we all know the rematch clause has been activated. Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz are going to have a rematch. Andy Ruiz is contractually obligated to give Anthony Joshua a rematch. And what we have heard is one thing that we could be pretty certain on is Eddie Hearn does have a clause in that rematch agreement that Joshua, and the team can choose where the rematch is going to be. Now, there are other rumors out there stating that there's already a set purse amount for Andy Ruiz included in the rematch clause as well. That doesn't seem to be 100% confirmed right now, but we'll talk about that later in the video. We'll get back to that. So, the thing is this, we already know guys who have the house promoter, guys who have the big promoter, the lead promoter, guys like Anthony Joshua who have Eddie Hearn, who's pretty much the lead promoter in the rematch and was the lead promoter in the first fight. I know TGB was part of the event. They are Ruiz's promoter, and obviously they probably got a piece of Ruiz's purse per Ruiz's agreement with them. But Eddie Hearn was running the show in the first fight, and he's pretty much going to run the show in the second fight, which is pretty much understood because of the deal he has with the Zone. The fight's going to be on the Zone. The Zone is the one that's funding Match from USA right now. So obviously Eddie Hearn's going to be the lead promoter. We know that. So Eddie Hearn does have the leverage. There's no question about that. No one's questioning that. But that doesn't mean that certain things aren't going to be challenged, certain things aren't going to be questioned, certain things aren't going to be disputed or tried to be amended by Team Ruiz. We already know he's got Al Heyman as his advisor, who is definitely one of the smartest men in the business, definitely one of the most powerful men in the business. And we already know that Ruiz has said he's going to go back and talk to Al Heyman. So some of the things that are in this contract, I'm going to be curious to see if they're not adjusted or, if certain things aren't going to be amended or certain things can't be tweaked a bit for Andy Ruiz. So that's number one. Okay? There's still going to be some type of negotiations going on. And the misconception that when there's a rematch clause in a contract, that the contract for the next fight is already drawn up. People are, for whatever reason, saying, well, everything's already set. Nothing is set. You still have to draw up another contract for the second fight. And even though there are stipulations in the contract stating certain things must be a certain way, the whole contract in its entirety is not completed, and other points of the contract definitely are still going to have to be negotiated on. And as I said, certain things may be challenged. I'm sure Al Heyman is having his lawyers look at the contract to see, what can be enforced and what can be challenged. I'm sure that's going to happen at some point in time, or if it hasn't already happened, during his sit down with Andrew Ruiz. But here's the thing. Many times in boxing, obviously, people that have leverage, they want to use it. And whether it's fair or not, whether people are stacking the deck so far in their favor that it becomes ridiculous, I mean, we've seen Cotto do this when he fought Sergio Martinez when Cotto wasn't even the champion, you know, but he had Top Rank behind him at the time, and he was the guy that had the lead promoter in the fight, or the promoter. Him, like Top Rank and Lou DiBella did co-promote that event, but Top Rank at that particular time had a better relationship with HBO than Lou DiBella did. HBO was more heavily invested in Top Rank than they were with Lou DiBella. So automatically, from a monetary standpoint, from a leverage standpoint, regardless if Cotto was the champion or not, he still had the leverage in that fight, even though Sergio Martinez was thought to be in the top 3 pound for pound best fighters in the world at that time. And even though he was recognized as the true champion at 160, Miguel Cotto still put demands on him. That fight was at a catchweight of 159. Miguel Cotto demanded that. Even though he wasn't the champion, he's telling the champion, hey, if this fight is going to happen, it has to happen at 159 pounds. And Cotto got so, I think it was like a 70, ended up being like a 70-30 split in Cotto's favor as well. So, this is what leverage does. Sergio Martinez was the champion. He was getting older. It was a big money fight for him. So it only made sense for him to secure the fight because it was the biggest fight out there for him, where he could make the most money. And at his age, he needed to, maximize his earning potential as the window was closing in on him. And Sergio Martinez, once again, was on the short end of the stick earlier in his career when he fought Paul Williams. Once again, Sergio Martinez thought to be in the top 3 best fighters in the world. He was the champion, but Paul Williams and his side demanded that the fight be at a catchweight. And Paul Williams ended up getting the lion's share of that pot as well, because he had Al Heyman in his corner. And at that time, Al Heyman had a great relationship with HBO. So HBO, had their favorites. I mean, obviously, they're going to go and support and favor the fighter who has the promoter that they're more heavily vested in, the promoter that has the bigger stable, the more prominent fighters. And at that time, Top Rank was a powerhouse, and Top Rank always has a great stable of fighters. So obviously, because of that relationship, even though Paul Williams wasn't the champion, he was able to exercise leverage over the champion and the perceived better fighter, Sergio Martinez. Now, B, why are you saying all these things? Because what I'm trying to say is leverage usually is given to the fighter who has the more powerful people behind him, meaning his promoter, promotional team, advisor, whoever it is, whoever has the more powerful team behind them who's getting the push, they're usually going to be the A side. Now, Eddie Hearn has that deal with DAZN, and even though Andrew Ruiz is with PBC, DAZN has invested a lot of money in Matchroom, and right now DAZN has provided the largest deal in the sport financially, monetarily, to Eddie Hearn. Now, DAZN has some good fighters, and you can argue that PBC probably has a better stable, and PBC at certain times can generate more money in certain events than DAZN can. But overall, DAZN has invested more money than any other broadcaster or platform right now in the sport. And Eddie Hearn is a recipient of that. So right now, Eddie Hearn does have a very strong position, regardless of whoever wants to agree with it or not. He does have a strong position in the sport of boxing right now. But if Anthony Joshua loses this rematch, all that changes. Because the money man is Canelo right now. And if Anthony Joshua loses, then DAZN will be losing another money man. So it's going to be in their best interest to really get behind Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn in this fight. And DAZN has already said that they want this fight in New York because they feel that's where they could profit and maximize the revenue generated if the fight is in the United States. So it's more financially beneficial for them, and it'll probably be more financially beneficial for Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn as well. So here's where the problem lies, though. Now, obviously, we know there's a rematch clause. Eddie Hearn's moving real fast, and I think the reason why he's moving real fast is because he's concerned that these sanctioning bodies could try to enforce their mandatories on Ruiz, and then the titles will become fractured. And then when Anthony Joshua, if he was able to beat Andrew Ruiz, there'd still be some other titles out there that he'd have to go back and try to capture. And then it becomes more complicated because then you have different fighters fighting for the vacant titles. Then you got to deal with different fighters from different networks. The whole situation becomes complicated. So in order to keep those titles intact and to maintain and strengthen his leverage, he needs Ruiz to have all those titles. That's the thing. But one thing that has been mentioned by other people on here is if Ruiz does decide to stall out the negotiations, if they can't come to terms and things get dragged out a little bit, and worst case scenario, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does end up going to court, then it just prolongs the whole negotiation process. And then after a while, the sanctioning bodies are going to say, well, hey, we're not going to sit here and wait around till you guys get this rematch squared away. We're going to strip you. And it doesn't matter if Ruiz gets stripped or not, because he's going to be looked at as the man. He already beat Anthony Joshua. Okay? Anthony Joshua needs those belts to reestablish himself. Andrew Ruiz doesn't need those belts. He's already the man who beat the man. He's already going to be held in high regard. He's going to be looked at as arguably in a lot of people's eyes, the true champion. Boxrec already has him at number one. Boxrec has him at number one. I think Ring has him at, number 3, behind Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. But that can change. That can change. If Deontay Wilder were to lose to Tyson Fury, Ruiz could definitely slide right back up into that number 2 spot. So things can change very quickly in the sport of boxing. But the problem is this. Even though Eddie Hearn does have the leverage, that leverage can be used against him in this situation, because if Ruiz and Al Heyman and all of Ruiz's team decide that they're not happy with the final deal that they're getting, then this thing could get dragged out. And this thing could cause Ruiz to get stripped of the titles. And then that would defeat Anthony Joshua's whole purpose and whole plan of becoming unified heavyweight champion. So then he wouldn't be able to use this, I got 3 belts, you only, 4 belts, and you only got 1, when he sits down with Wilder. Or when he sits down with Fury, he could say, I have 4 belts, you have none. Because at that time, Fury, if Fury does end up fighting Wilder in December or January, and he beats him, he'll have 1 belt. And then Anthony Joshua could be in a situation where he has no belts, or he may only have 1 belt, depending upon what happens in the interim while this fight is getting made. So Eddie Hearn is under pressure to get this done as fast as possible in order to keep these titles intact. And because of that, now he's considering, okay, well, I'm not ruling out America. We could have it in New York. Whereas before, he was so adamant and hell-bent on having this fight in the UK. But now he's changing his tune. And supposedly, and again, this hasn't been confirmed, but supposedly Ruiz is supposed to be locked into a set amount for the rematch. But what happens if he's not happy with that set amount? Is Eddie Hearn going to not throw him more money? Or even DAZN can step in. Who's going to stop DAZN from stepping in? Because they really want to make this fight. They want to make this fight as fast as possible too, because they want to strike when the iron's hot. They want to make this rematch quick because it's hot right now in everybody's minds. So what if the zone decides, hey, you know what? Why don't we throw him an extra 5 in order to make this fight? That's very possible because when they were trying to put that deal together for Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearn stepped out of the picture and he said the zone's paying both fighters. The zone's going to pay Deontay Wilder separately, and the zone is going to pay Anthony Joshua separately. I'm going to have nothing to do with all that. So if the zone decides, you know what, well, he's not happy with this purse, okay, we'll kick in a few bucks because it was rumored that that's how Big Baby Miller got $7 million, because I think the original offer was pretty much the same as Dillian White's, and then Big Baby Miller held out a little bit, and the zone kicked in a little bit of money and sweetened the pot, and that's why he took the fight. That's the rumor. That's what he had said in interviews. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But we do know, and it has been confirmed, that the zone was willing to pay Deontay Wilder out of their own pocket and pay Anthony Joshua out of their own pocket to try to make that fight happen on the zone. So the way the zone's talking right now, they're really excited about this rematch. They really want it back in New York. So that's also going to have an influence on where the fight is, because the broadcaster is going to have a say, because once again, as I said 1,000 times, they are providing the funds. They're putting up the money. Eddie Hearn is using their money. And they wanted this fight in the United States. They wanted it to be against Miller, and they wanted it to be in Madison Square Gardens. So that's why I believe Eddie Hearn scrapped that April 11th date at Wembley. And then people say, well, that's because Dillian White turned it down. They made him an offer that they knew he was going to turn down. And that was basically a PR stunt on their part, just so they could say they threw him an offer. They made him an offer that they knew he wasn't going to take, so they could make this fight with Miller. And the WBC right now is having Dillian White fight Oscar Rivas for their interim title, just so they can pacify him and say, well, okay, you're not the number one contender anymore, because you know what? Now you're the interim champ. So that's just a way for them to allow Deontay Wilder to do what he wants to do and fight Tyson Fury, because again, that's a bigger fight, which in turn will be a bigger sanctioning fee for the WBC. It's always going to go down. It's always going to go down to the money, guys. That's how it's always going to go down. With all due respect to Dillian White, he deserves a title shot. He should have fought Anthony. He should have got the shot at Anthony Joshua. Now he should get the shot at Deontay Wilder, because he's been the number one contender in 2 sanctioning bodies for over a year now. And he's been in some good fights. He's fought some good fighters, and he's keeping busy. And he's going in there with another tough opponent in Oscar Rivas. So that's the thing. That's the thing. So, Lou DiBella said to me one time when I asked him about, well, that's not fair. And he replied to me, well, fairness does not exist in the sport of boxing. So if you're looking for fairness, you're looking in the wrong place. If you're looking at boxing, if you're trying to find fairness in boxing, because this is not fair. Now, I already know people are going to say, well, Ruiz signed the contract, he knew what he was getting into, but he was in a situation where he had to sign the contract or he would pass up on the chance of a lifetime. So it is what it is. And I already made a video about what an unconscionable contract is, meaning an overly one-sided contract, and how overly one-sided contracts can be challenged, and they can sometimes be voided out because a judge could say, well, this party has too much of an advantage, too much of an unfair advantage over the other. They have too much of an advantage in bargaining power over the other, and they're taking advantage of the other side. And I've already explained, history. History, when Buster Douglas did something that was arguably very close to what Andy Ruiz did. I almost called him Johnny Ruiz. So I have a habit of sometimes calling him Johnny Ruiz because Eric got that in my head. But Buster Douglas did something very similar to what Andy Ruiz did, or I should say Andy Ruiz did something very similar to what Buster Douglas did. And their upsets were very similar, where there were two guys who were huge underdogs. Buster Douglas, everyone knows he was a 40-1 underdog. Ruiz was as high as 20-1 with some bookies and some sports books. And most people ended up getting him at 11 to 1 underdog. So both guys were huge underdogs, right? Buster Douglas came out of nowhere and upset the world against Mike Tyson. In his very next fight, he fought Evander Holyfield. He was supposed to get a rematch with Tyson, but Tyson had that issue and he had to, go to jail or whatever. So Buster Douglas ended up fighting Evander Holyfield. Guess what Buster Douglas got in his fight with Evander Holyfield? Buster Douglas in his first title defense got $25 million. And that was back in 1991. So now Ruiz is only going to get supposedly, allegedly $10 million for a rematch against Joshua in a fight where the pot will be much bigger this time around than it was in the first. And obviously, Joshua arguably is going to get more in this rematch than he did in the first fight after losing the first fight. And he's going to be going into the fight as a challenger. So once again, fairness does not exist in the sport of boxing. But in what world does that even make sense to anybody? Now, then the rebuttal to that is, well, Ruiz signed the contract. Okay. But he had to sign the contract. He had no choice. So Eddie Hearn definitely is smart in the way he does these deals. But is he really? Because how many fighters have looked at these one-sided contracts? Kubrat Pulev, Tyson Fury, Dillian White, Deontay Wilder, and the list goes on and on. How many people have looked at these one-sided, unfair contracts and said, you know what? I'm not going to take it. So now this is an example of how Eddie Hearn really takes leverage to another level, because he put it, very rarely have you seen a rematch clause this one-sided in the loser's favor. I've never seen a rematch clause this one-sided in the loser's favor. Thank you, young Merv, the cut man. Eddie's contract's a pure cancer, can't dispute it. I agree. So that's the thing. Like, how many times have we ever seen someone try to really exercise that much leverage? I mean, Anthony Joshua already is at an advantage because he's the house fighter. He's the DAZN's guy. Fight's going to be on DAZN. DAZN is in a partnership with Eddie Hearn. So that's a huge amount of leverage right there. But now they want to add to that. Oh, it's got to be in the UK. Oh, we got to limit the amount he's going to get in the rematch. Why the fuck do they care what he gets in the rematch? As long as DAZN pays Anthony Joshua, why the fuck do they care what Andrew Ruiz gets in the rematch? Why would you have to limit Andrew Ruiz in the rematch? Can I tell you why? It's fucking pure greed. There's enough money to go around for everybody, but Eddie Hearn is greedy. He's a greedy motherfucker. Now, everyone's greedy, don't get me wrong. But how greedy do you have to be? How greedy do you have to be? That's the thing. He's a greedy motherfucker. To say and again, I'm speaking very hypothetical here because I could be totally wrong. Maybe there isn't a limit on Andy Ruiz and the amount he's getting in the rematch. But when Coogan asked him, he wouldn't answer it directly. But he said to Coogan, he goes, "Come on, Coogan, you know what? You're not stupid. You know I'm not stupid." So kind of insinuated that, yeah. So Ruiz can turn around and say, you know what? Yeah, I signed the contract, blah, 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 blah. But that's before I realized how much money was going to be in the pot for the second fight. Goes to court, tells the judge that, yeah, I signed it, but it's kind of, at the time I signed it, I had no way of knowing how much bigger the rematch was going to be. And he could say to the judge, well, this guy lost, and he's getting substantially more money than he got in the first fight. Yeah, I won. They're going to give me more money than I got in the first fight, but it's still not the same amount of increase that this guy's getting for losing. So I may get twice what I got for winning, and this guy's going to get 3 to 4 to 5 times more for losing. In what world is that fucking fair? But Beebe signed the contract again. Had no fucking choice. He wanted to fight. They took advantage of the fact that he was the B side. So what did they do? They threw a really one-sided, lopsided contract at him, and he had no choice but to accept it. He had no choice but to accept it under the circumstances. Once again, unconscionable contract. When one party uses an unfair amount of bargaining power and leverage over the other. And people are going to try and compare this to Lennox Lewis, Hasim Rahman, when they went to court, because Hasim Rahman wanted to totally ignore the rematch clause and not even give Lennox Lewis the rematch. And the federal judge back in 2001 ruled in favor of Lennox Lewis. But here's the thing. Did Lennox Lewis demand that the fight had to be in the UK? Did Lennox Lewis demand how much Hasim Rahman was going to make in the rematch as the champion? Hasim Rahman ended up making $10 million in the rematch in 2001, and Lennox Lewis ended up making 11. So that's pretty close right there. That's like almost 50-50. Okay? They're asking Ruiz to take 80-20, 70-30 in a rematch that he won. Not in a rematch that he won, excuse me. In a fight where he's going in as a champion because he won the first fight. Excuse me for making that error there. That's what I meant to say. But I'm showing you examples that are very similar to Andrew Ruiz's, and the situation is much different. So you're asking Andrew Ruiz to make $10 million in 2019, almost 2020, where in 2001 you had a guy that made 10 and his opponent made 11, and then you can go back to 1991 and you had a guy that made 25 in the rematch in his first fight as the champ. So if you factor in the cost of inflation, Andrew Ruiz is not getting market value as the champion. He's arguably one of the biggest names in the sport right now. Okay, the things have changed now for Andrew Ruiz. And to sit there and try to just act like nothing's happened here, and Anthony Joshua, even in losing, gets rewarded, where the other guy gets rewarded, but no way near to the extent and level of the guy who failed and lost. So I just don't like when the side that has the leverage abuses that leverage, takes it to another level. And the reason why I get so angry about what Eddie Hearn does is, of course, he is an obstacle for making a lot of these big fights, because he gives out these one-sided contracts that he knows the other side is not going to agree to. Kubrat Pulev, Dillian White, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Now, the Luis Ortiz situation, I defend Eddie Hearn on that. Luis Ortiz should have taken that deal. I think that was a bad move for Luis Ortiz to turn that deal down, because that was a huge payday for him. He's not going to get anywhere near that fighting anyone else. Not even, he's going to be 100 miles away from that fighting anyone else. So in that instance, yes, I side with Eddie Hearn on that one. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, if you're saying if you're saying in the chat he shouldn't have signed it, I already explained why he signed it. If you can't understand why he signed it, then either you're not listening to me clearly, or you just choose to ignore what I said. He had no choice but to sign it if he wanted to fight. He had no choice. So that's what it is. So it would be in Eddie Hearn's best interest to concede a little bit on some of these points in order for this process to not be overextended and dragged out longer than he wants it to be, or longer than it should be, because the zone is going to be anxious. They're gonna get a little bit concerned about it if they can't get this fight put together. They're going to get a little antsy. They're going to put pressure on Hearn because they want this fight to happen because it helps them out. It's going to increase their subscriber base in the United States, so that's going to be huge for them. Okay, so they're gonna be putting pressure on Eddie Hearn. Sanctioning bodies are going to be putting pressure on Eddie Hearn because they're going to strip Ruiz, like I said. So even though he has the leverage, could this leverage work against him if he tries to abuse it? Or if he tries to strong arm Ruiz too much? Because these things are plausible, guys. I'm not saying they're going to happen. I'm not saying I want them to happen. It's not about me taking a side here. I am providing plausible scenarios to you. That these scenarios are 100% totally plausible. They're totally plausible. That's the thing. These scenarios are totally plausible. Are they probable? Maybe. Are they 100% certain to happen? Not sure. But I'm not here to be the great Kreskin and tell you that I can predict the future. I never said that I had all the answers, but I do have all the questions. I don't have all the answers, but I do have all the questions. And when I do provide these questions, someone's got to answer them at some point. Someone's got to answer them at some point. These aren't questions that can just be swept under the rug and ignored. They have to be answered. And Eddie Hearn and Team Joshua and Team Ruiz are going to be the ones in the next coming weeks to answer these questions. That's the thing. That's the thing. So in my opinion, I'm not saying that Eddie Hearn and Joshua are not the A side here. I'm not saying that they don't have the leverage. What I am saying is don't abuse that leverage because in the long run, it could end up working against you. Don't get cocky, okay? Give a little bit. You said you had to overpay Charles Martin. You said you had to overpay fighters early in Joshua's career in order to get him to the position you wanted him to get him in. So now all of a sudden, don't get cocky because you saw what could happen. You saw what could happen on June 1st. One fight can change everything. Nothing is promised. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're trying to put this rematch together because nothing is promised. Okay? So I think the fight will probably be in the Madison Square Garden if I was a betting man. If I also was a betting man, I suspect that Ruiz will probably get more than $10 million for the rematch if I was a betting man. And if I was a betting man, I would predict that this fight is going to be huge, this rematch. This rematch could possibly be bigger than Canelo Golovkin 3. This could end up being the biggest fight of the year, this rematch. So they have to keep that in mind and not fuck it up. They have to keep that in mind and not fuck it up and make sure they can put this together. Because if the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for Team Joshua, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and DAZN. The worse it's going to be. Alexander Wilson, thank you. Rick Glazer said Hearn has three fight options on Ruiz, and he has final say on Ruiz during the duration of. Okay, Rick Glaser says Hearn has 3 fight options on Ruiz, and he has final say on Ruiz during the duration. And 15 million was in the contract for Ruiz to do the rematch. Atlas stated the same. That is 100% false what you just said. Atlas said that Ruiz was getting 10 million in the rematch. You can go back to the video. He said it. He said he and he didn't confirm it. He said that's what he heard. Also, Eddie Hearn said if Ruiz wins this rematch, he's free and clear. He could do whatever he wants. That's on video. So everything that you just said there has been proven 100% to be totally false. Totally false. So with all due respect to you and everyone else, you guys got to do better research. If you did your research on Rick Glaser, you would know that that guy is the biggest fraud on 2 feet. Okay? He comes out and says things that are totally false just for shock value, and that's what a lot of people do on here. That people want to. You have a lot of people on there who are attention seekers, who are going to put out all the bullshit in the world just to get attention, and just to have people talk to them, and it's just totally false. At least Teddy Atlas said we are not confirming this. This is what we heard. So he didn't say 15 million. He said 10 million. That was the source that I got the 10 million from. Dan Raphael did not say that, did not confirm that. What Dan Raphael said was Hearn. The only thing that was really confirmed by other sources was that Eddie Hearn had choice of the venue. So that looks like it's pretty clear. That's not 100% confirmed, but it looks like it's pretty much going to, that's pretty much accurate. But this whole thing about 15 million, 10 million, we don't know that. That hasn't been confirmed by anyone yet. So at least Teddy Atlas, was smart enough to say this is what we heard. It hasn't been confirmed. You got guys like Rick Glaser coming out, saying that they heard this. Eddie Ruiz does not have a fucking deal with his own. Eddie Hearn had said it several times. He goes, he wins this rematch, he's free and clear. He could do whatever he wants. He's the man. He's probably the biggest man in boxing if he wins a rematch. So, guys, I'm not trying to, jump on you or anything, but really go back and when you do research, try to get multiple sources and look at the source that you're getting it from, and look at the history of that source you're getting it from. And if they have a history of saying a lot of things and just trying to grab headlines and they're wrong all the time, like Rick Glaser is, then we really shouldn't be listening to guys like Rick Glaser. Rick Glaser is a total fraud. He's a total joke. And he should not be taken seriously. Teddy Atlas, I'm not going to say that about him, but at least he had the common decency to say that it has not been confirmed. It's a rumor. And it's okay if you say, I heard this, I heard that. It's a rumor, it's a rumor. But when you say things like, I heard this and it's definitely true, you set yourself up to, to have your credibility damaged. That's the thing. So thank you for the super chat. And I appreciate that. But again, dude, don't ever listen to Rick Glaser. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. That guy is a fucking joke. Just being honest. All right. What's going on, everyone in the chat? How you guys doing? So what do you think is going to happen here? How do you think these negotiations going to go? What's going to end up happening? Where's the fight going to end up being? What do you guys think? Guys think this fight's going to be an MSG? Anthony Joshua said that he wanted an MSG. The Zone said they wanted an MSG. But Eddie Hearn's still looking at UK venues. He still hasn't confirmed one way or the other where this is going to be. So what do you guys think this fight's going to end up being? And do you think that this fight is going to happen in November? Do you think that we'll have an announcement by the end of the month here? Or do you think this is going to get dragged out longer than Hearn has anticipated? What do you guys think? Any thoughts? I understand Hearn said that. But again, you have to look at the points I made. You can't just keep saying the same thing over and over again without listening to the points that I made. The zone is going to have to sit down with Eddie Hearn and make a decision with Eddie Hearn because they're partners. That's what you have to understand. So it's not about what he has. It's not about, what the contract says, because again, there's other things to think about there. We already know it's in the contract that he can choose where the fight's going to be. But he still has to run it by DAZN. DAZN is the broadcaster. They are the platform. They want it in New York. The fighter wants it in New York. So that's the thing. So we'll see what happens. So what's his name? Let me see here. Big Lou thinks it's going to be in New York. There's more money and it's better off for DAZN if it's in USA. I still think AJ can pull it off. Yeah. Legendary Boxer says DAZN wants it in USA. Sky is owned by an American company now. Yeah, they are owned by Comcast. That's a fact. Okay. Do you think Andy should stay in the 265, 270 or slim down to 245 like you said for the rematch? I think Andy Ruiz should come in at about 245 for the rematch, in my opinion. I think it'll be faster. AJ doesn't have AJ, says Sean Newton. I don't know. Eric Loda says people really underestimate DAZN's leverage in all this. I agree 110%, Eric, because DAZN is Eddie Hearn's partner. He said it several interviews. We are partners with DAZN. So to sit there and say that DAZN is not going to have a decision in this, or at least be part of the decision-making process, I think people are crazy. Sean Newton boxing, AJ can fight anywhere. That's 100% true. But again, the broadcaster still has to put the fight on. They don't like the venue, they can pass on it. So that's what you guys have to understand. The fighter and the promoter are nothing without a broadcaster. That's why they sign deals with the broadcaster, because the broadcaster provides them with their revenue. The broadcaster pays the promoter, and the promoter pays the fighter. Now, in some instances, the promoter can say, the promoter can allow the fighter to get directly paid through the broadcaster if that's their decision, but then the promoter will still have to take a percentage of what the fighter gets from the broadcaster. So the broadcaster is the top of the food chain in all this. Then the promoter is number 2, then the fighter is number 3. The promoter is not more powerful than the broadcaster is. Al Heyman is nothing without a Fox deal. He's nothing without a Showtime deal. Eddie Hearn is nothing without a DAZN deal, and he's nothing without a Sky deal. And Adam Smith had said several times that we cannot compete with DAZN right now. They are offering the fighters more money than we can. So that's why all of these UK fighters have come over to the United States to fight. That's why all of these UK cards are now coming to the United States, and they're not in the UK anymore because they are getting paid more money. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. I mean, you guys want Eddie Hearn to be like the ruler of the sport. Even Al Heyman's as powerful as Al Heyman is, he still can't do shit if he doesn't get funds from a broadcaster. If he cannot get a platform to show his events, then he can't do shit. None of these guys have any power without the broadcaster. It's just that simple. It's just you can't dispute it. That's the thing. So that's the thing. Okay, Hearn needs to supply fighters for DAZN, but if he doesn't, De La Hoya can. If he doesn't, someone else can. Eddie Hearn is not the only ticket in town. If Joshua loses, I mean, who else does Eddie Hearn have? Who else does Eddie Hearn have if Joshua loses? Oscar has Canelo. Canelo is the money man over at DAZN. Canelo is the money man in boxing. Canelo did the largest 2 events on DAZN. Canelo Smith is great, but he's not a crossover star. He can't generate the same amount of money that some of these other fighters can generate. It's simple and plain. Matchroom's not in a good spot right now. Usyk's great too, but he's not a crossover star. He's not the money man. No one can compare to AJ. Ringside Reporter, thank you, Jim. Ringside Reporter is the best boxing podcast on the web. I appreciate that, Jim. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hashtag Ringside Reporter, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Sunday night. Hashtag. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim, for giving us a shout out. We appreciate that. Glad you think we're the best. Hearn put together Hooker and Ramirez on DAZN. Great fight. Great fucking fight. Great fucking fight. And here's the thing, too. Like, Eddie Hearn, like, DAZN cares more about Canelo than they do AJ. That's pretty obvious. That's pretty obvious. They gave him they put it together a $365 million deal for Canelo. AJ's on a fight to fight. They haven't even given AJ a locked-in contract. AJ doesn't even have a contract. He doesn't even have a locked-in contract. They haven't even made a commitment to AJ. So they already know that Canelo's the man. They're focusing on Canelo more than they're focusing on AJ. Canelo has way more of an upside than AJ does. They release Canelo's numbers. They don't release AJ's numbers. Why is Canelo's numbers the only numbers that DAZN releases? Why? Because they're so much better than everyone else's. This fight. Hey, thank you, Jem. Said Ringside Reporter runs boxing. Awesome. I appreciate that, Jem. JM. Thank you so much. I don't think we run boxing, but we are becoming a force. Thank you, Jem. Says Ringside Reporter runs boxing. Awesome. Fucking love that. Great support. Give me $100. Give me $50. I'll give you a wrench. Give me $50 right now. I'll give you a wrench. Awesome. All right. So that's the thing. That is the thing. I mean, a lot of people like to say, Beeb, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Well, again, the reason why I know things is because I look at data. I look at data and I do research. Okay? Anyone can sit on their ass all day waiting for headlines and just regurgitate what a website says. What I like to do is take it a step forward. I like to listen and listen to what people say and look at people's actions. And I look for habits. I look for trends. I look for empirical data. So when I see certain things happen, all I do is connect the dots. Now, a lot of people are lazy. They don't want to connect the dots. They want to hear what they want to hear. They search the internet looking for confirmation bias, and they only talk about headlines that suit their narrative and agenda. Whereas I'll tell you everything. I tell you everything. I'll tell you everything. Now, Beeb, how do you know this? How do you know that? Well, why does Canelo have a committal deal and AJ doesn't? One reason and one reason only. Canelo has proven he's an established star globally in the United States, and he's a major star everywhere else. Mexico. So he's already established. The goal was for this fight was to make AJ one step closer to what Canelo is. That was the goal. Oh, Jem, thank you so much. Ringside Reporter, #1 boxing podcast in the world. Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you love us so much, man. You are fucking like a cash register today, man. So that's why they didn't give AJ a long-term committal deal, because they're trying to see if they were trying to see if they could make him into an American star. Because I'm going to say something that a lot of people aren't going to like, and it's going to sound patriotic, but it's good. But again, whether it sounds that way or not, the truth of the matter is, you're not going to become a star if you don't make it in the United States. You're not going to maximize your earning potential unless you come and fight in the United States. And DAZN has proven that. DAZN has proven that. Because DAZN wants all the big fights here. They want this rematch here. They gave Canelo $365 million because he fights here. That's why AJ didn't get that. And I'm going to tell you something else. Igloo, thank you so much. Legendary Boxer is the best part about this channel. Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll give him a shout out there. And I'm going to tell you something else that's going to be startling to you. This fight did half the numbers on pay-per-view than Anthony Joshua and Alexander Povetkin did. Did half. But Anthony Joshua, and again, that was thought of as a much harder fight for Anthony Joshua. People actually thought it was going to be a tough fight. You know, they looked at that as a good matchup, and people were actually interested in that Povetkin AJ matchup. There was really a lot of people thought this was a tune-up when he fought Ruiz. They didn't think much of it, right? They didn't think much of it, right? They thought there was a showcase fight. A lot of people were just blowing it off. So it did half the pay-per-view numbers in the UK than the Povetkin fight did. But here's the kicker. He fought a perceived lesser opponent in Andy Ruiz, a perceived easier fight in Andy Ruiz. Okay? And he fought in a smaller venue. Okay? Obviously, the ticket prices were more, whatever. The gate was probably more, whatever. But he made the same exact money he made for Andrew Ruiz than he made for Alexander Povetkin, doing half of the pay-per-views. So think about that, guys. He did half of the pay-per-views in the Ruiz fight than he did in the Povetkin fight. And this was confirmed by Eddie Hearn, whether he's lying or not. Alex T, thank you, Al Heyman. So why did he make the same exact amount of money in a lower level fight against a perceived easier opponent, a perceived tester fight, like Jason likes to call it? How did he make the same amount of money in this fight than he made against Povetkin, fighting in a smaller venue? Why? I got one word for you. DAZN. DAZN will pay him more money, or not more money, but the same money, okay, for a lesser fight. They paid him the same money for a perceived lesser fight in a smaller venue, and in an event where the UK would be watching at 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So I had all those things working against him, but they still paid him $20 million, the same amount that he got when he fought in the UK. Okay, and in the UK, he did double the pay-per-view buys. How is that possible? How is that possible? Miller was thought of as an easier opponent than Alexander Povetkin. The reason why Miller was all hyped up, Sean, was because he was from New York and he had a big mouth. A lot of people gave him no chance. Povetkin was people gave Povetkin a chance. People gave Povetkin a chance. I'm just being honest. Oh, it's 4 in the morning? That's even worse. So even with doing half of the pay-per-view buys, he still got the same purse from DAZN. Now, what do you think DAZN's going to pay Anthony Joshua in the rematch? I bet you Anthony Joshua gets $30 million in the rematch, going in as a loser. That's what I think. That's what I think. So that just goes to show you DAZN is willing to make more of an investment for fighters if they fight in the United States as opposed to if they fight over in the UK. So that just tells you. That in itself just tells you what the plan is for DAZN. It's just that simple. I would think I think the rematch is the biggest fight in boxing. I think the rematch is bigger than Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. I think it's a bigger fight. And I will say one thing that a lot of people aren't going to like either, that aren't AJ fans. I'm going to say one thing that a lot of people aren't going to like that aren't AJ fans. I think AJ, Sean says DAZN is not sad he lost. I think they are a little bit, but then when they're looking at this rematch, I think it's easing their pain a little bit, knowing that the rematch can be huge. So it's being reported that AJ made $20 million for Povetkin, and he made $20 million for Ruiz with half the pay-per-view. So how do you make the same amount of money with half of the pay-per-view buys? Why? Because you fought in America. If you fought Ruiz in the UK, you weren't going to get $20 million. Probably would have got 15. Just saying. My opinion, but once again, I'm using data. So one thing that is true about Anthony Joshua, he did increase the market value of the heavyweight division. Because ever since that Klitschko fight, and ever since Anthony Joshua started getting paid the big money, that's when Tyson Fury got the big deal from ESPN. That's when Deontay Wilder got that offer from DAZN. Deontay Wilder, this same time last year, was making $2 million. It's reported that he made over $10 million for Brazil. You guys, we do have to give Anthony Joshua credit for that. He has increased the market value of this heavyweight division without fucking question. We have to give him that. Whether you're a fan of AJ or not, which I am a fan of AJ, I like AJ. I just get aggravated with Hearn. I don't have no problem with AJ. Hearn just pisses me off because he's just so fucking cocky and arrogant. And he's just so greedy sometimes. So that's the thing. So even if so now you're saying that there's a source saying he only got $8 million for Povetkin, which that supports my argument even greater then. So then he got less. But AJ, we have to think, well, I don't have to thank him, but all these heavyweight fighters do owe him one thing. Wilder and Fury do owe him one thing. He definitely has increased the market value, and he's enabled them to get paid more. Because without Anthony Joshua, I don't think the market value would have increased. Can't dispute that. You can't dispute that. Anthony Joshua did breathe a lot of life in this heavyweight division when he knocked out Vladimir Klitschko. Did. Right when he knocked out Vladimir Klitschko, that's when everything started heating up. Got to acknowledge that. That's what everyone's saying. Oh, this division's awesome now. This is awesome. That's when everyone started saying that. Okay? We have to be honest. Eddie Hearn is the best promoter in the world, says H Money. Can I tell you something right now? That could be an accurate statement. that could be an accurate statement because people want to say PBC, but Al Heyman's not a promoter. Al Heyman is not a promoter. He's an advisor. So what Eddie did with AJ alone and with Eddie being able to get that DAZN deal. But again, yeah, you know, you could say, you could mention De La Hoya, but De La Hoya got $365 million for Canelo when Eddie Hearn got $1 billion. So yeah, I mean that is a statement that could have merit. He's arguably the best promoter in the world right now. Whether I like what he does or not, I cannot discredit, you know, what he's done. I can't discredit it. Beeb, Eddie Hearn pays fighters more money than Al Heyman. Yeah. Eddie Hearn has the second highest paid fighter in the sport right now. So Eddie Hearn's getting guys. Look what Eddie Hearn has done for. What Eddie Hearn has done for guys like Devin Haney, and what he's done for guys like Tevin Farmer. Those guys wouldn't make what they're making anywhere else, and they weren't making what they're making now anywhere else. Danny Jacobs, he never would have got a Canelo fight if he wasn't with Eddie Hearn. So we can argue that Eddie Hearn's the promoter of the year right now. You can argue that. Because Canelo Jacobs, what did Jacobs get for that fight? Like 15 million, they're saying? He's never even sniffed, like the most he's ever made with Heyman was like 2 million. So right now, you know, we got to give Eddie Hearn credit for what he's doing for these fighters. Whether fucking DAZN is losing money or not, the fighters aren't losing money. The fighters are still making out on this deal. So I don't give a fuck if DAZN is losing money or not. I really don't. I really don't care if DAZN is losing money or not. And here's another thing, though. Shout out to Legendary Boxer. He made a good point. He said Hearn negotiated DAZN deal according to Keith Conley. You can say what you want about Al Heyman not dealing with other promoters, but Danny Jacobs, to my knowledge, and Andrew Ruiz, to my knowledge, are Heyman fighters. And they fought on DAZN. So I don't think Heyman is going to advise fighters to not fight on DAZN if it's best for their financial interests. So shout out to Al Heyman for at least having no problem dealing with working with DAZN. JM says, Eddie, #1. Ringside Reporter, #1 podcast in the world. Thank you so much, Jem. Yeah, Heyman let Andy go to DAZN also. That's what I said. That's what I said. I don't think Jacobs is a second-tier guy. I don't think Andy Ruiz is a second-tier guy. I just want to be fair in saying that. Are they elite guys? Are they Canelo and are they Canelo? And was Andrew Ruiz perceived to be Joshua? No. But I wouldn't say they're second tier. I wouldn't call them second tier. Beeb, Eddie Hearn made Demetrius. Look what he did. Like what was Demetrius Andre doing before Eddie Hearn signed him? My man Ryan Hong, how you doing, brother? What's going on, baby? What is going on? So this is why we call it down. We call it down the middle here, man. We call it down the middle because you know why? We look at data. That's what we do. The data says Eddie Hearn has the largest deal in boxing right now. We can't question that. We can't question that. We cannot question that. So we got to give Eddie Hearn credit for what he's done for fighters like Danny Jacobs, Demetrius Andre, Callum Smith, Tevin Farmer, Devin Haney, Usyk. Now Usyk's going to have a platform now where people who weren't able to see him can see him now in the United States. So there's a lot of good things happening, man. I mean, I gave DAZN some stick the first half of this year, but I'm really liking this schedule second half of the year. Really. I really like it. No problem, Ryan. Anytime, brother. Thank you guys for joining in and for tuning in, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. And again, check out MegaFit Meals. I'm telling you guys, go there, just buy a 12 pack, dude. Try them out. You don't have to buy them all the time. Just try them out. They're good. They got keto meals now. They got sesame chicken now. They got bison burgers now. Like people want to go on a low carb diet for the summertime. They got protein cheesecakes, fucking 10 carbs per slice. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. They're fucking awesome. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you when I buy them all the time. Hold on. I'm going to show you a MegaFit meal. Look at this MegaFit meal, man. The MegaFit meal right here. What is this now? This is a sweet and spicy chicken right here. Look at this. Got the calories in the back. Look at this. Got the protein, the carbs, and the fat already broken down for you. I took this one out of the freezer. All I got to do is stir it out and heat it up. Look at this. This nice chicken with the nice mango glaze on top of it with pineapples and rice, jasmine rice. Fucking beautiful, guys. That's just one of the meals that I got. I got tons of them in here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I get a discount, obviously, because I'm a sponsor. Because I'm getting sponsored, but that's because I do advertisement. But if you think about it, I'm not saying you got to buy 50 of them a month, but if you buy like 12 or 16 of them a month, it's still cheaper than going to a restaurant. So I just think it works out great, man. Click the link in the description box and at least, give them a try. You don't have to buy them. Like, try them out. If you like them, buy them like once a month. It's not gonna break the bank. It's not gonna break the bank. First 5 people that buy them, I'll send you t-shirts. Send you MegaFit Meals t-shirts. Check out the Ringside Reporter t-shirt as well. Check out the Oh, do you guys get a code? No, you don't get. I'm sorry, because they only the people. You get a code if you buy the t-shirt. You get like $3 or $4 off. But if you buy them, if you want to try them out, I'll make a deal with you. If you buy 12 of them, I'll send you a t-shirt plus $30. So I'll chip in to give you a discount. Like, I'll give you $30 in cash. You send me if you send me an email address, if you have a PayPal, and I'll give you my email here in here. If you buy 12 of them, I'll give you $30 and I'll buy you a t-shirt. Just tell me what your size is. Give me your address. I'll send the t-shirt to you. And give me your PayPal, and I'll PayPal you $30 if you buy 12 of them. That's the deal. That's the deal I'll make with you if you want to do it. I'll send you $30. Well, I mean, if you're spending $120 for 12 meals, or $110 for 12 meals, $30 is that's like almost 25-30% discount. So I mean, where else are you going to get a 30% discount? Right? Where else are you going to get a 30% discount? Let's be real about that, So, but that's the thing. Just try them out. You may like them. I love them. Sometimes you come home and you don't know what you want to eat, and that's the worst thing. When you come home sometimes and you don't know what you want to eat, And then you end up just saying, fuck it, I'm going to order out. I'm going to get a fucking pizza, or I'm going to go fucking McDonald's, or I'm going to go to KFC because I don't know what I want right now. I'm tired or whatever, and I don't feel like cooking. Then um it'll be interesting, man. It's just good for you. It's good for you because it prevents you from like eating junk food just for the sake of eating junk food because you're too lazy to cook. They're like $10 a meal. They're not cheap, but they're not expensive either. They're cheap. They're a good price for what they are, though. It's Angus beef and they're good quality stuff. Quality stuff. Quality stuff, guys. So to really sum it all up, though, to really sum it all up, title of this video is what it is, and I'll explain why I believe that is because Andy Ruiz, whatever happens from here on out, Andy Ruiz already did the unthinkable. Okay, he already made history. He's the first American heavyweight champion of all time. So whatever happens, his name is going to be etched in history. He already overachieved. He did what was unexpected. Okay, and even if this fight was to fall through, or whatever, people say, well, who else is he going to fight? He could always fight Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and probably he can get the same or maybe even a little bit more against those guys because the split would be different. The split would be different. So he could probably get the same or maybe even a little bit more fighting those guys. So I don't think he would lose money fighting those guys. But his reputation would stay intact. Anthony Joshua needs to avenge that loss. He needs to avenge that loss or his career is over. He needs to avenge that loss or his career is over. Simple and plain. Anthony Joshua is fighting for his career. Ruiz is not. That's the thing. Anthony Joshua is fighting for his career. Ruiz is not. Anthony Joshua is fighting to repair his image. You know, Anthony Joshua loses again, his career is probably over. Andy Ruiz, I think, is in a no lose situation. He's in a no lose situation. I'm going back and forth with this guy right now. He's trying to challenge me. Yep. Yep. All right. All right, guys. So I think I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much. Again, I think that Anthony Joshua is fighting for his career, where I think Andrew Ruiz is in a no lose situation. Um, you let me know what you guys think. Beeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. Have a great night. Yeah, that was kind of fucked up last night, Corey. Call in early, man, so that doesn't happen again. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Have a great night. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace out, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, everyone, for the super chats. Peace out.